all so much for being here, for making the decision to make this your lunch period, because I know how precious unstructured time is here at St. George's, really any boarding school. So thank you again for sharing this moment with me. I can't even express to you how exciting this is. And thank you to Mrs. Williams for creating this series. I think this is so fantastic. I look back to when I was 17, and I think if someone like me had come to speak, I might have been able to hack through some more weeds a little faster than I did. But here I am, and want to thank also Mr. Weston, who I saw at a reception last March in Boston, and we were chatting before going in and grabbing our cocktails because we're adults. And he looked at me and he said, you know, you've really followed your own path. I would love for you to come back and speak to the students and tell them a little bit about that. And so I've actually been having this conversation with all of you for the past year. I've been keeping a note in my phone, and every time I thought of something that I thought might be applicable to where you are right now, might have pertained to where I was when I was sitting, not in these seats exactly, because the building ended right there when I was here, but you know, where I was, where you might be, and really gave me a chance to put in perspective where I am now, where I was, and where I'm headed. So I'm Helena Grant. I'm founder and CEO of the personal brand styling company, H. Grant Style, and I have the coolest job in the world because I get to help women just make it fun and easy to get dressed every day, to express their personal brands and really send their message out, not only to the world, but to themselves. And that to me is the most important thing. What's the message you're sending to yourself with how you're getting dressed every day and what you're wearing? And I really, you know, when I had this invitation to come here, I was like, well, this is so great because I have these strategies that I created for myself, and I come at learning from a very multi-dimensional, multidisciplinary approach. We could call it liberally arted, you know? You take little bits from every little piece that you're getting, and that's the amazing thing about, especially I think, St. George's education, because you're just getting so many different aspects of life that you can then apply to so many other areas, depending on the lens that you use. So I have these 3 hacks, and I'm going to quickly outline them. I'm just going to enumerate them, and then I'm going to tell you a little story, and then I'm going to unpack those hacks a little bit. So I'm really only going to I'm going to keep talking for like 23 minutes, and then we're going to have some time for some questions, some conversation if you want to stay, but after the 23 minutes, obviously, if you want to go back and take a nap, I totally get it. So the 3 hacks. Number 1, launch your limitlessness. Number 2, be your own knight. Number 3, 23 minutes to power. So I knew a girl when I was here, and it was a particularly bleak February evening. And we all know that the longest, shortest month here in New England can really weigh on you. And this girl was a junior, 5th former, and she had all the trappings of really lighting up in life. She had had an amazing childhood growing up in New York City, going to a Catholic all-girls school. She was a tri-varsity athlete, prefect in a freshman dorm, AP History, destined for AP Bio, AP Government, a wonderful NASCAR career as a bi-varsity athlete in college, a Fulbright teaching grant after college, and a wonderful career in Boston after that. But of course, on this February day, in 1998, she couldn't see any of that. She was so totally overwhelmed, overridden, and overwrought with anxiety. She didn't know what to do. So she went up to her dorm parents' office, knocked on the door, and just said, you know, can I come in? And her dorm parents said, yes, of course, please come in. What's wrong? Have a seat on this stool in the middle of my study. And this poor girl just curled up in a ball, just bawling her eyes out. And her dorm parents said, what is wrong? And she said, I just don't know how I'm gonna be a success. And the dorm parent came over to her with the biggest, warmest smile on her face, wrapped her arms around her and said, oh honey, if there's anyone who's gonna be a success, it's you. Don't worry about it. Success, you'll figure it out. You've got moxie. You'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. So those words were helpful for this 17-year-old, and she came back to those words many times as she, proceeded again through college and into her career. And I really, again, throughout this whole year, thought about her a lot. So, what do I mean by launch for limitlessness? Limitlessness is a really big word. And it represents something limitless. So now when I say, for instance, you can go anywhere in the world right now. Tell me, where would you go? I don't know. But if I say, okay, you can go anywhere in France right now, where would you go? Paris. Yeah! How much easier is that decision, right? When you have limits, you have boundaries. And when you have boundaries, you have structure. And when you have structure, that's when you're the most free. So one of my favorite boundaries and limits is the dress code. And I know, you wake up in the morning and you're like, God, I wish I could just wear my schlubby, dumpy sweatpants today. But I can't because I'll get a green card if you still have those, and I'll have to go to study hall. My teacher's going to send me back because they're going to say I'm not in dress code. Why does it matter? It matters a lot. Because when you show up and you're dressed up, you do better. There was a study conducted by UC Berkeley. It's called the white coat test. And they had two sets of doctors, equally educated, equally experienced, and they addressed two sets of patients. And one set of doctors wore their street clothes, and the other set wore their white lab coats. And the set of doctors who wore their white lab coats had better cognition, better decision making, and were more confident in their diagnoses. And guess what? Their patients had more confidence in their doctors and responded better to their diagnoses. Guess what happened with the doctors who were wearing their street clothes? Any guesses?
It did worse.
I mean, they still did okay, but not nearly as well as the doctors who wore their lab coats. So that to me is like, that lab coat, that gives you that extra edge, that sense of power, that badge of your education. And as a personal stylist, helping women really embody what that power might represent on a daily basis, it might be a blazer, it might be a pair of shoes, it might be a dress, it might be some, it's totally up to your interpretation, and that's the beauty of style and self-expression. You get to decide that every day when you get dressed, and you can always reinvent yourself. So, launch your limitlessness, and that's not just in your clothing and every day, but that's also understanding the physicality of your limits. So this winter, I had the opportunity to go on my very first backcountry ski expedition. And this was a lifetime dream of mine. My grandfather was in the 10th Mountain Division in World War II, and I never met him, but my whole life I was raised knowing that I was like him reincarnated with my, I had this very girly side growing up. I love high heels, but I also have this very adventuresome side. I love to put on a pair of hiking boots and go for a 20-mile day hiking 9 different mountains with everything I need on my back. And so I had a friend who had offered to guide me on this trip, and we had a very ambitious plan for December 31st. And he called me up the night before and he said, Melina, it's gonna be 20 degrees below zero tomorrow. Are you sure you wanna go on this trip? And I said, oh yeah, we're going. Because when you have the right gear, there's no such thing as bad weather. So we layered up, And I just had like so much excitement and adrenaline coursing through me. And it was this beautiful, crisp, bluebird day. And it was so cold it almost felt warm because we were working so hard to cover these 10 miles in a really, it's December 31st, you only have a certain amount of daylight to work with. So those first 2 miles in, it's like sun is shining and I'm killing it. Like I've never been on backcountry skis. I grew up skiing downhill, not a lot of cross-country ski either, but he knew that I had a lot of athletic ability, so he had a lot of confidence in how I was going to be able to handle this pretty grueling day. So first 2 miles, I'm killing it. And I've covered this trail on foot. I led children for almost a decade as a hiking counselor in the summertime, a wilderness leader through this area. So I knew it like the back of my hand, but when it's got a blanket of snow and you have that kind of weather, it was a whole new world. And of course, I had these slippery things on my feet. And just demolished those first 2 miles. Show up at a junction called Mercy Dam, where there are a lot of campgrounds, and it's just kind of a culmination point. And you really can't stop for very long when it's that cold. You have less than 5 minutes before you need to start moving again because your body starts to get cold, and you have to tuck your mittens into your jacket because if you leave them out, they turn into icicles. And we were one of 2 groups that happened to be there that day. And then there was one person who was kind of floating around, and I looked at him and I'm like, I think that's a reporter. And he skied over, and he said, "Hi, I'm here from National Public Radio. And I want to know, first of all, if you're willing to be interviewed, and second of all, why the hell you're out on a day like this?" And I was like, "Well, of course, I'm happy to be interviewed, and I'm just delighted to be here." And he said, "Well, first of all, can you please describe for our listeners what you're wearing?" And so I looked down and I was like, you know what? I'm not in technical, like normal backcountry ski attire. I had my downhill ski pants that have this like embroidered tiger on them with these bejeweled eyes, and I had actually my mango orange Patagonia shell on. That was my jacket when I was here 20 years ago. So that speaks for making investments in good gear. And of course I had a hat on, but it was the pants that really got him. And he just wanted to know about the history, and of course he thought that my guide had dragged me out on a day like this. And my guide very quickly was like, "Oh, no. I'm here because she insisted." And it was one of those days that was amazing to have that moment commemorated, because that was certainly a highlight, just killing those 2 miles and thinking that the next 8 were going to be that easy. But really, a beautiful thing that piece made it nationally. We can share it with all of you again so you can listen to it. But what really was the culmination for me was the next 2 miles, which were the 2 most grueling, spiritually expansive miles of my life. Every step was hard. And my friend and guide kept looking back at me and saying, "I know you can make it to the lake, but are you going to be able to make it back?" And I looked up at him and I was like, if I turn around now, I'm never going to find myself. And I had to push myself so hard. That last quarter mile making it to the lake, oh my God, it was like every step I'm like, am I making the right decision? Am I doing the right thing? But then I would look back at the trail I had come up and I'm like, I can't go down that. I have to make it to the lake. So I knew that I was taking into my hands one of those moments where you say to yourself, I am changing my life right now. I'm proving to myself that I'm going so far beyond my limits, I'm pushing my boundaries, but I am fueling this whole other side of power that I know is in me. So we make it to the lake, and I know that my guide is terrified because we're running way behind schedule. And cell phones don't work in that area anyways, plus it's so cold, the battery dies almost instantly. So we had just enough battery power to get some shots of us at the lake, and then it was, 5 minutes are up. We gotta start heading back. And before he could open his mouth, I said, Brantley, we have two options. Option one, I take off my skis for that 2 miles that we just did, and I follow you down the ski path. Option two, I take off my skis and I go on foot down the footpath. And the relief in his face was enormous because he didn't want to have to go up against me to say, I'm worried about you getting out on skis. And it was so hard for me as an athlete to have to say, I need to take my skis off, just go on foot. Just for 2 miles, 2 out of the 10, but still it was a moment where I had to just take out the ego and eliminate the pride and know that I had to keep myself safe and keep him safe. Because if I got injured, you don't survive long if you aren't moving at 20 degrees below zero. So he skied out the ski path, I took off my skis, and the snow was so hard packed because it was so cold that I literally floated. I did 15-minute miles on foot, walking. You can do the pretty fast running, but I didn't want to run. And we made up all the time we had lost in me being so slow getting up those 2 miles to Avalanche Lake. And we kept the paths crossed, so we would always wait at the junction for each other to make sure we were meeting up. And then we get back to Marcy Dam, we put the skis back on 2 miles out. I'm gonna taste the water. So that was a moment where I really was launching my limitlessness by embracing my boundaries and my limits. So, strategy number 2, be your own knight. Knight. I run into it a lot. People are like, you went to St. George's, and I don't get it. Your mascot is the dragon, but St. George was a knight, and he slayed the dragon. So why aren't you the knight? And I don't know if I can technically answer that question right now, but I love being a dragon. I love what it represents. It's a mythical creature. And St. George was a martyr, so, he didn't actually slay a dragon, but he was standing up for his faith, and he was willing to die for it. And when you look at a dragon, too, they're pretty cool. I mean, they can fly, they can breathe fire, and they have their armor already intact. So when I say be your own knight, it means that you can't look to someone else to save you. You have to take care of yourself. You are the best person to take care of you. And you have so many people that care about you and that do care about and do take care of you. Your mom, obviously, maternal figure, your dad, your siblings, your friends, your teachers, your dorm parents, your coaches, all of them are caring for you, but it's up to you to be your own knight, to come to your own rescue. And St. George, he probably had a lot of money. He had a lot of people supporting him in that, in that dragon slaying, whatever that actually was. So you have this incredible support system, but you have to know when you need help, when you need to reach out, when you can't just take care of yourself all the time. But it's up to you to establish those boundaries and really embrace 3 super easy aspects of self-care. SEN. Sleep, exercise, nutrition. Now, exercise and nutrition here are pretty much built in. Nice brown paper bag lunch. Exercise, you have to take sports, you have to be active in the athletic community. And I know, we've got lights out, so you think sleep is ingrained as well, but it's not. You still get to decide how long you're studying, how much studying you're doing, how long you're taking for the paper to write it. And believe me, this is coming from someone who pulled maybe a few too many all-nighters here. And that can be fun, it's an experiment. You the whole next day you're like, oh my God, am I floating? Which then turns into, oh my God, am I walking through molasses because I'm so tired? And it's really easily the easiest thing to sacrifice, and yet it's the most important thing that you can be doing for yourself to really contribute to feeling powerful, feeling successful, and really being able to absorb information in general. So, make sure to be your own knight, especially at night. Number 3, 23 minutes to power. So this kind of pulls all of those together. And this is one of my methods that I use. And as an entrepreneur, I do a lot of things myself. I have to outsource a lot of things because I embrace my limitlessness by understanding what my boundaries are, about knowing where my zone of genius exists so that I can stay there and not be bogged down by little itty-bitty details that are just going to make me feel like I'm not the powerhouse that I am. So this 23 minutes to power, I employ anytime I start to feel that same overwhelm, that same stress, that same anxiety that I know that girl at 17 was so overridden by. And it still happens at 37, almost 37, that's Friday. I'm still 36 today. But it still occurs. So this is one of my life strategies. 18 minutes to start. You go back to your room, free period, you're feeling tired, you're feeling a little foggy, feeling like, oh God, I gotta get this done, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, oh my God, I gotta study, I have a paper, and you're just so tired, and you don't even know where to start. 18 minutes, set your alarm, get down to your base layer, get under your covers. Tell your body and your brain you're gonna rest. Lay there with your eyes closed, totally still, just focusing on resting. If you fall asleep, great. If not, that's okay. You've still rested your mind, you've rested your body, and the minute that alarm goes off, get out of your bed. And I know you're gonna be very tempted to pull the covers over your head and blame the woman who came for the brown bag series that she told you to take a nap in the middle of the day. But this is just it. This is why 18 minutes is so key. Because when you take one of those delicious 2-hour naps and you wake up and you're like, I just want to go back to bed. That's called sleep inertia. That's the proteins that are developing on your cells while you're asleep that you just can't quite shake it off. So that's why you go for 18 minutes, because you don't get to that point where you move into the sleep inertia area. 18 minutes gives you just enough time to like reset the clock. So 18 minutes, alarm goes off, put the clothes back on, and then next minute, you drink a glass of water, and you put your clothes back on. That's a minute. Minute 19. So then the next 2 minutes, I want you all to stand up. We're going to do those together. And if I could have someone volunteer to set a timer for 2 minutes.
I'll do it.
Oh, all right! Young man over there. I like the enthusiasm. You can do it too. Make sure he's... We have 2 alarms. Okay, so I'll tell you when to start. What's your name?
Aristo.
Aristo. I like that. So I'll tell you when to start it, but first you're standing hip width apart to the feet. This is a standard sort of stance. Keeps you nice and grounded, keeps you kind of sturdy. I want you to bend your knees just a little bit and bring your core in. Not like sucking it in, not flexing, but just strong core, because that's what's holding everything together. And you're going to make 2 fists with your hands, and you're going to put them on your hips. This is called superhero pose. So Aristo, start that timer if you will. Sir, thank you. So now, first thing you do in superhero pose, you breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. You make that sound. Keep going. How good does that feel? Keep doing it. I'm going to talk a little bit. It's called Ujjayi breath. This is bringing you back to the ocean. This is a quick 2-minute meditation, and meditation has been scientifically proven to not only help you come back to who you are, but it literally smooths over the ridges in the brain that are caused by stress, anxiety, and sleep deprivation. while you're doing this, you can start to envision yourself as Wonder Woman, Superman, Superwoman, Spider-Man, whatever Marvel comic character you want that just is amazing and gives back and contributes and so powerful. And you can envision anything you have coming up, writing that paper, taking that test, just showing up to class, ready to learn, ready to absorb. After this 2 minutes, everything is easier. Everything falls into place. The world seems more beautiful. You're more relaxed. You feel happier, more centered, more grounded, more powerful and ready to take on the day. You can do this in your room. You can do this in a bathroom stall. You don't even have to get into this physical stance. And then you shake it off a little, open your eyes, and then you go like this. Power pose, let me see it. The power pose. And this is where you envision light coming out of your fingertips, out through your feet, out of your head. And then you bring it back in, and you say, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Have a seat. So that thank you at the end, that is the cherry on the sundae. When you say thank you, again, scientifically proven that people who are grateful are more successful and happier than people who aren't. So when you just say that general thank you, it's the thank you for those 2 minutes that I just took. Thank you to this body that is a supreme machine. My God, the things that our bodies can do. I know Mrs. Williams can speak to that. The biology is just astounding to me. And what's even more astounding is that in life, there really is no division between art and science. To me, they're so synonymous. You can explain so many things with science, and art can, illustrate so many things. But to me, they're really kind of the same thing. So when you say thank you, you're saying thank you to yourself, you're saying thank you to the universe, and that takes us to 21 minutes total with your nap, your 1 minute to get dressed and drink your glass of water, your 2 minutes of power pose, a superhero in power pose, and then what are the last 2 minutes? Just kind of gather yourself a little bit and just take a little extra time to send a text, an email, make a phone call, call your mom, call your dad, call your brother, your sister, your friend, your teacher, your coach, and just say thank you. And they'll be like, for what? And you'll just say, I just wanted to say thank you. And, maybe you can have a little bit of a conversation, maybe not. Just say, I just wanted to say thank you. And watch what happens for them, and watch what happens for yourself. So, launch your limitlessness. Be your own knight. 23 minutes to power. I really wish that girl, Lenny Marin, at 17, her 5th form year, had just heard those 3 things. Because I am she, and she is me. And every day I get to go back to that moment, that formative moment of sitting on the stool, so wrapped up in that tiny little world of thinking that I wouldn't be a success. But really, success, you get to decide what that is. And you know that by being here, by getting this education, you're learning how to learn. You're learning how to share with the world at large. And what a privilege it is to be here. Wherever you came from, this is a privilege. This environment, this community, and you can always come home. You can come home physically like I have today, but I can promise you, wherever you end up in the world, this magnificent place will not only be in your heart, but the images, the structures, the view. You are growing up with this incredible perspective on everything. And I am so happy that you were here today to share this moment with me. And I am thrilled that you are now a part of my history, my journey forward. So I will ask for two calls to action. One, don't forget to say thank you and call your mom. And two, this is recorded, and I'm going to be posting the link to the recording on Instagram. So I don't know if you guys like Instagram, but we're going to do one thing before the question and answer period, so I make sure I get the photo of all of you. But my paparazzi, where is he? My husband, Noel, is going to take a picture of us. So this is going to be posted on Instagram at HTransStyle. So when this picture goes up, I want you to tag yourselves, and we'll stay a part of the whole system. Okay, so stand up again. We're all going to do power pose at the end, right? Arms up in the air, light coming out of your fingers. Love it. How do we look, Noel?
Good.
Thank you so much. So much. I have so much more to say. I would love to answer any questions, and even talk about, what it was like for me here at St. George's. But obviously, I don't know how much time you have left in your lunch period. Again, if you want to go back to your room and take a power nap, I get it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Does anybody have questions, thoughts, anything they want to?
You can also talk to me afterwards, or, you can contact me. Yeah, you can go.
Okay. Anybody have questions? Well,
I should have planted questions. Come on. Yes.
How did you start your career in grant style?
Oh, that's a great question. And actually, I would like to say I'm going to be expanding my business exponentially in the next 10 years. So you guys might be looking for a job for me. So think of this as an opportunity to start asking questions just like that one. I love it. So a lot of people ask me how I became a personal stylist. And I say technically I launched HTransStyle 3 years ago. My third anniversary is actually on Monday, April 16th. But really I've been a stylist my whole life. So style, fashion, clothing, and really self-expression has always been a passion of mine. My parents were both lawyers growing up, but they were both very crafty. My dad we would dissect pianos and make sculptures out of the insides and the hammers and the keys. And my mom would say to me in August, "What do you want to be for Halloween?" So one year I was like, "Well, I want to be Dorothy." She's like, "All right, draw the dress." So I draw out the dress, big puffy sleeve, big skirt, the whole thing, big bow in the back. And we would go to the fabric store together and we would make the dress. And that would be my dress. Obviously the Dorothy dress would be made out of blue taffeta. And after Halloween, she would add lace to it and I would get new shoes, and that would be my dress the whole year. For weddings, any Christmas occasions, anytime I needed to be dressed up. So we would make that one dress and that would serve me throughout the year. So it was very industrious, it was very hands-on, and it really showed me how amazing it can be to take that two-dimensional vision that, in my head, I had this perfect vision of what I wanted it to look like, and then to put it on paper and then to actually bring it to life with my mom. And then of course that extended into shopping as well. And actually, I had a uniform growing up, so when I was coming to St. George's and I had a dress code, it was like, oh my God, so much leeway. And I quickly found that it was a lot easier to take her shopping and get her to buy nice things for herself that I liked versus her buying things just for me, which she always wanted me to buy 2 sizes too big because I was going to grow into it. So really, I was styling my mom when I was 14. And when I was here, again, I had a very limited wardrobe because my whole life I had had a very structured closet. And still, freshman year, right off the bat, freshman year, people were asking to borrow my clothes, asking me how they should wear things, if I had any ideas about, what they had in their closets. And that, of course, extended into some roommates just wearing things without asking me, and college and beyond. So it was actually when I was helping a friend, she wanted to completely rebrand herself because she was operating on this thought that she needed to dress for what her clients, she thought her clients wanted her to be. So she had this like blonde bob, big curl, pink tweed, wearing Hillary Clinton lookalike thing going. And she was like, Helena, you've got great style. Can you just help me? I'm going through this transition in my life, and I really need just a freshener, like for my clothes. And every time she would have a free minute, she would call me and be like, can you help me edit my closet? Can you help me go shopping? And I was actually making handbags at the time. I had my own line of handbags. And I would drop everything to go and help her. And she was the one that said, you know what? You have a real talent for understanding what women need, what they want, how they can express themselves, and you need to share that with the world. So she was really the impetus behind officially launching H Brand Style. And it was funny because you have things that are just so easy for you, that you love so much, you would do them for free any day of the week. And so often that's exactly what you should be pursuing in terms of your career, but you don't always see that immediately. I think if I had tried to launch this company at 22, I've experimented in retail, I was in real estate, I was in the restaurant industry, and every experience has informed me in being the success I am now as an entrepreneur. So it's been a lifetime in the works, but officially 3 years. Anyone else?
What does your average day look like?
Oh, so growing up, I told my mom, I don't want any day to be the same. So I have general structure to each day, depending on the day. So usually Mondays, we live in Connecticut. My husband is director of advancement at Westminster School. So we moved there 3 years ago when our daughter was born. Moved out of Boston, which is where my client base is. So we'll start at the beginning of the week. I love Mondays, because it's like the whole week stretches out ahead of me, and I'm like, this is the week I'm going to do absolutely everything I want to do and take on the world. But Mondays are usually in Connecticut, and that involves, I go to yoga in the morning, yoga or bar. I like to get my workout in the morning to kick off the day, get those endorphins pumping, and also, if you save it to the end of the day, it's nice when you practice because it's getting structured in, but as you get into the adult world, it's a lot easier to say, I'm not going to work out because it's at like 5 p.m. So if you do it in the beginning of the day, it's done. And then I tend to be at my best from 9 to 11 a.m. So that's when I make certain decisions and apply myself in certain areas. So that's when I turn off social media. And I design things like the Style Archetype Test, which is a personality test people can take to work with me. It helps me segment my audience. So projects like that, where my brain is at its most optimal level. And then I usually open up, I have a nice lunch. I usually have lunch with my daughter, especially on Mondays and Tuesdays when I'm in Connecticut. She comes home from school, which is always such a nice time for me to catch up with her. She's 3.5, and she acts like a 15-year-old, so it's kind of scary. And then I open up to client work in the afternoon. And I've been doing a lot more virtual work, which is amazing. Video conference now is unbelievable what you can accomplish. Just seeing someone on the screen and having that interaction is so immediate, even though you're not in person, which is ideal for me. I love to get into a woman's closet and just create this like whoosh. You don't need this, you don't need that, get rid of this, style this, wear that, buy this. It's like, that's the best for me, but I don't always have that time and that access. So the virtual work is great. And then late afternoon, I actually take a nap almost every day. Some of the most highest performers, a lot of politicians, Winston Churchill, John F. Kennedy, just countless people in history have taken afternoon naps because they know that if they just take that time to reset the clock, they're going to be that much better for the rest of their day. And then 4 o'clock, I have some tea, and then try and finish up work, because when you are an entrepreneur, it's really easy to just have everything take all day and all night, because you think, oh, it's just me, I can get everything done, I have all this time, and suddenly you're working, 24 hours a day, and you have no personal life. So I really do try to cut it off at about 6 when I give my daughter a bath, and then finish up a little work after having dinner with the hubs. So that's a Connecticut day. And then there are Boston days. So that's Wednesday and Thursday generally when I go up there for more client work, networking, and then I'm like the solo entrepreneur. So I just get to like dive right into whatever work I need to get done. And then Fridays, oftentimes we're traveling, which I really love to do. I love to travel. I love to have everything I need in just one tiny bag, one tiny suitcase. Because, you know, when you're limited, you are that much more limitless. So yeah, general structure, but every day is different. And that for me is, I need that. I need to mix it up. Otherwise I would get bored, and nobody wants me to be bored. Although I'm never bored, because even if I have to sit there and stare at a wall, I just have all these ideas and all these visions. And so I actually enjoy when I can have a moment to be bored, you know, on the unstructured time. But structure is imperative. Yeah.
When did you figure out your like 23-minute routine and like how that dialed into your life?
That was thanks to all of you. Thinking about this day and being here, and I'm like, what can I give them that's like that one morsel that they can use? And the 18-minute power nap has been something I've been employing in my life for a long time because I know what it's like to push myself so far past those limits, so far past normal exhaustion that you know, I've really imperiled my health. And so sometimes you can't get I need 9 hours of sleep at night, and that's really hard to get. So sometimes you just need that extra boost in the afternoon. And again, that's like, depends on your day and your chemistry and all of that. But I was like, this could be something that they could really use, because if you try and take a nap for your whole free period, then you're like a waste of space the rest of the day. So that 18-minute power nap was huge. And then also, I think if I had discovered meditation earlier, I would have been so much better off. And that's starting to become kind of a buzzword in our society, meditation, mindfulness. And it's not just the Buddha under the Bodhisattva tree anymore. You can have meditation be a walking meditation. It can be a guided meditation off of YouTube. But for me, I really prefer to just tap into that breath and know that I'm smoothing over all those ridges in that amazing brain that's up there, and really just benefiting myself. So if you can be employing that now and make it easy and digestible, if I tell you to sit there for 20 minutes with your legs crossed on your floor, you're gonna be like, yeah, right, lady. Right? But 2 minutes of like feeling like a superhero, I mean, come on. So yeah, that was thanks to you guys, so thank you. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, did you study art and design, and if so, how has that informed what you do? And the second part of the question, how do you treat, because each person is an individual when you're styling somebody, do you use any particular rules generally and then cater to them?
Thank you. 2 wonderful questions. So I am the absolute epitome of a liberal arts education. We had a core curriculum at Hamilton, so there were classes I had to take, and it was very similar to St. George's. Coming here, you know, I had visual foundations, I had biology, you know, you just have like everything. You get to study everything, and you might not be great at everything, but all of it is contributing to your ability to see the world in through whatever lens it's helping you see. And I would say I'm not the best drawer, like 3D drawer, so visual foundations was a little bit of a struggle for me, but the real breakthrough was photography. And it was fun yesterday. My husband was so supportive. We did a drive-through, and I was like, oh, stop here. Oh, stop here. I need this photo. I need this photo. And I'll try to put it on Instagram too, but there was a formative photo that I took of myself. So I was 15, and sophomore year actually for me was a huge struggle. I lived in Astor, and I had some roommate issues. She was going through her own personal difficulties, and I had to move out in the middle of the year. I lived in the infirmary for like 2 weeks, and they were so wonderful to me. And then they were like, okay, it's time to like move into a dorm again. And luckily I ended up moving in with who I call my cosmic sister. Melina Martin and Alina Marin. I mean, whoa. It's like we're twins from a different mother. And she's now my best friend. We travel the world together and see each other regularly and talk all the time. But yeah, so sophomore year, photography became my catharsis, my place to express myself and capture these images. You know, I'm always like absorbing everything around me, but photography made me like really focus in on what I was seeing and how to present that in this two-dimensional space. And that whole process of taking the photo and then developing it and just keeping, you know, you keep developing it until you get it to be as good as you know that it can be. And there was a photo I took that semester where I'm standing in the doorway of Old School, and it's pre-selfie era. Selfies didn't exist because at this time, everything was an SLR camera. So, unless you had a timer, which I didn't. So I was using my mom's 1920 Minolta, and I took this photo looking in through the doorway of Old School. So you could see the hallway, the white walls, you could see the dark doors, and all the way to the door to the chapel. And then in the window was my reflection, my short hair, my bushy eyebrows, and behind me was the library. So the trees have overgrown quite a bit in the past 20 years. But you could see the dragons twirling up the spires, and you could see the library. So it was this like multi-dimensional photo, and I got an A- on it. And that was like, wow, I can express myself in a different format. I love words. That's my real true passion. I was a creative writing and French double major at Hamilton. But art has always been a huge passion of mine, going to museums, traveling. I think that there's just so much history has been immortalized in art, and there's so much to unpack there too. There's so many different levels. So while I didn't technically study design, art has been a huge part of my education and a part of my life experience. I'm always trying to find the beauty of things. What makes proportions work? Why does this work and this doesn't? Why do these colors go together and these don't? Why do these clash and why do these, complement? And so that is what has enabled me to now pull that into my work with my clients. It's not for me scientific necessarily. There are some formulas, absolutely, but it's personal style, it's personal expression. So what I do is I'm actually going deeper than just being like, oh, there's this trend, you need to wear this. For me, it's finding out, how does the woman want to feel in her clothes? What is she doing with her life? What is her lifestyle like? What are the demands of her day on a daily basis? Where is she going? Where does she want to go? This idea of like quantum focus. So you're right here, right now, and you can say, I want this out of my life. But the universe doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you are being. So when you get dressed, you're telling the universe, this is what I'm being right now because this is where I want to go. And to be able to help women do that and make it easy and make it fun, because we have so many options. It's not just khakis, a button down, a tie, and a blazer, right? It's like skirts and dresses and pants and sweaters and blazers, and it's like all these colors and how do they go together? And because we have so many options, it can be very overwhelming and very limiting. And often my clients come to me and they say, I have a closet full of clothes and I have nothing to wear. They don't know how to put it together. So they're looking for those fresh perspectives, those fresh eyes, and I love to say I'm an ultimate problem solver. So for me, it's really finding out, again, what they need, and then providing that and making sure that it's a very seamless, very easy, very fun process. I'm a lot of fun to have around. So yeah, I think that answered both.
I wasn't here for the beginning, so if you've already addressed this, just ignore my question. But have you reconciled the amount of money that people spend on clothes and with like personal style? And there's not everyone can redo their wardrobe or buy the blouse that they want. So
right.
Where do you, like, your clients obviously pay you and they might need to invest in clothes, but how do you reconcile someone who might not have a huge budget or someone who's trying to make do with things that are secondhand or hand-me-downs from a sister or stuff like that?
I love that question, thank you. So I work with people on a one-on-one basis, which is either in person, virtually, or virtually, which are both definite investments in their in both time and money. But I also offer an online course called Be Your Own Stylist because I wanted to reach a broader audience and be able to help more people on a broader scale than I was able to do just individually. And for me, that budget is so important because even if you're able to buy whatever you want, you might be buying the wrong thing, you might be buying the wrong size, the wrong color. And so I like to say that women already have their personal brand in their current closet. They just can't see it because there's so many other things that they either bought under duress because they needed to buy something to go somewhere or do something. So they weren't buying something that they actually liked that actually fit them. They were just buying something because they had to buy something. Or they're buying something to fit into a trend, then they don't know how to make that work for their body, their body or their lifestyle, or again, the color, the size, the fit. So for me, it's really about being educated in the investments that you're making. And people are like, well, what are your favorite stores? And I'm like, Goodwill, TJ Maxx, Saks, Neiman Marcus, I can shop anywhere. That's a blessing and a curse. I can go into any store and find something fabulous. But it's knowing what you're looking for in terms of the materials. And also, fast fashion has been so amazing to open up that interpretation from the runway to giving it to you immediately. You can have it right now, but that also affects the quality, and that's also affecting our environment because people are not holding on to the clothes as long as they would. The clothes don't withstand the washing, so this is part of my broader scope of A-Tran style going forward, but it's really knowing about what works for you and what you want out of your clothing and how it's going to support you in your life. And really, not necessarily, I'm actually a big fan of the impulse buy, but it's the educated impulse buy. It's making sure that you really like it, that you don't care that, even if it's on sale, you're not buying it because it's on sale. You're buying it because you love it, and it's an extra bonus that it's on sale. But you look at it, and I tell my clients, all right, it's $10 on the price tag. Would you pay 10 times that? And you're like, oh yeah, I would pay $100 for this, no problem. Then you know that it's probably going to serve you well because you would have been willing to pay it. You don't just pay $10 because you can, because it's easy, and because you're trying to fill that void. So there's a really big psychology aspect to what I'm doing with my clients, and also what's going into women just buying things to fill up their closets and a space that really doesn't need to be filled with clothes. It should be, you should be supported by your clothing, not weighed down by it. Great question. I'm glad that's recorded. Probably more to say about that.
I think some of the kids have to understand
Yes.
wiggle, which means
I wiggle out of here.
to
Go.
classes, but if anybody has extra questions, let's mingle.
Yeah, let's mingle.
And
I think
thank
it's
you
more
very,
water.
very, very
Thank you.